And action.
Mm-hmm. So this is the opportunity to get notes over to the actors, to dial in all the performances. Also to work out where all our props are going to be.
And one big one.
And block out the timing of the camera.
Not fit to be a father. I try, I cannot change it. I have become everything I never wanted you to be. Run. Run far away from me.
But you have changed. You're not a monster.
That is exactly what I am.
Not to me. You will fail. How you deal with it is what makes you stronger. My father taught me that.
Yeah, so when we saw this, we knew
You should lead the way.
we had the right people. Pretty much felt like Kratos and Atreus as it is. They were the right height. And then that made the cleanup process and adjustment process a lot simpler once we did the motion capture. So here's an example of us shooting a scene. Corey is back there with the writers overseeing the scene delivery. And we get to see everything through Motion Builder as it's being shot. So as you can see, this is a careful, rehearsed dance between the actors and Dory to ensure that we hit the beats accurately. And our goal is to do it all in one take. And it became apparent early on after we brought Sonny in. This is one time we were just at the stage, started messing around. I might have said to hit play on the recording, maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But yeah, definitely this kind of childlike movement. You're not going to get this from an actor, from an adult actor. It'll be a lot tougher. It'll be a lot tougher for sure. So this is why it was important for us to bring in Sonny and to work with him.
Yes.
So HR didn't know a lot of this stuff was going on upstairs. We would have had to sign all kinds of waivers. But yeah, we liked it so much that we ended up getting a second suit so that we can do these kind of like paired up moves. Recording sort of the motions that we needed to capture. He's just kind of demoing for Eric ahead of him coming into the studio. And then we brought Eric in and we just spent an entire day rehearsing, practicing move, just so that we would have this footage ready to go once we went over to the mocap stage. So here's an example of a move going through every step. So this is James previs. Then we bring Eric in. Then on stage, he knows exactly what to do. And we can be a lot more efficient and focus on the quality of the movement rather than the idea. And this is after it's been polished and enhanced by our animation team. So this is Erica Pinto, our lead cinematics animator, and Mehdi Youssef, our lead gameplay animator. So we decided to go on stage ourselves and shoot a scene. So the first scene that we collaborated on, that we did together, was the ogre intro. There's a moment in the game where this guy comes through the door and attacks Kratos and Atreus. So I was Kratos, Mehdi was the ogre, Erica is Atreus in this case. And I just realized that Mehdi is actually holding a cell phone. So I don't know why an ogre would need a cell phone, but yeah, he's just snuck in there. So, so what we did in order to approach this, because another part of the mandate was to do this as a one-take game, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a later slide. We decided to go and shoot this in live action first and rehearse it, and really rehearse it over and over and over and over, and then before we took it to the stage. So I'll just show you this video and walk you through it. This is the footage of us rehearsing the whole scene. Yeah, we had to get creative with the scale, with the sizes, to represent the sizes as best as possible. And that was definitely fun and challenging. Now, this is the footage, the video footage feed that was on stage. And this is how you see the scene being shot in Motion Builder, the Motion Builder feed. Now, the tricky thing about this scene is that even though everything looks lined up with the camera, the characters are interacting, they were all different sizes. So when we got to the stage, we had to deal with it. We actually had to shoot the scene in separate spaces so that the scale, relative world space, and we had to rehearse it in a way that we were interacting with each other, but apart from each other. Now, as you can see there, Dory, who's our director of photography, is holding a marker. This is before we had a virtual camera. And he was actually walking around pointing the marker and looking at the screens up on top to get his framing right? So that he can frame all three of us. So he was using Kratos as the anchor for the scene, and just in order for us to be able to interact with each other in different scales, we had to do that in our own separate acting spaces.
Let him go!
So it was definitely a lot of fun to do that, and we got to learn a lot. And as leads, if we went through the process, understood the process, then we can better, have our animators join in with us and help us out to get this done. Definitely, it went a little bit up to our heads, but then after doing a full day of shooting, we realized that we can't do this ourselves. We need experts, we need professionals to help us do this. But it was great to at least go through that process once and figure out how it all works. The other method was, we were fortunate enough to have a small motion capture space also within our studio, where we could do previs, we could do just simple motions before we went over to the main stage. So there were situations where we needed to previs characters interacting with the environment or interacting with certain creatures that we just needed to do it in 3D. So yeah, we needed to figure out the scale of this boar. We need to figure out where Freya was going to be interacting on the shelves, where the characters need to be standing and placed. So this was how we would show this to our director before we would get approval. And then finally, my favorite way of doing previs was live action, where the animators had an opportunity to have a bit of fun. And this is just one of the previous scenes that we did out of many, many scenes. The reason why we use live action was because we could then go outside, go upstairs, shoot a couple of scenes very quickly, show them to the director, get feedback, and within the same day, we can go shoot them again. And if he had more feedback after that, we could shoot it again. And then it was just cost effective, and the speed of it was great. And on top of that, we had to have a lot of fun.
That was something, that fight. Catch. Well, that was a perfectly good waste of an apple.
How are you not seen? There is nowhere to hide up here.
It's a trick my people have. A special way of not being seen.
You can turn invisible?
More like I can step into the realm between realms. And your mind can't understand what it sees, so it actually sees nothing at all. It's how we avoid using the weapons that we actually craft. But it doesn't seem to work on dragons, though.
Your brother wanted to know if you're eating well. I can tell him that you are.
Brock asked about me. Was there mead on his breath? Or... You let him work on this again? Come on.
So we have a couple of dwarf characters in our game. So if you're wondering why this walking around on his knees, that's why, so we can get the scale approximation right. We did a lot of table reads. Our rehearsal day would look like in the morning, get everybody together on the same page, read the script, get everything planned out. And here's some examples of some of the early keyframe animation that we did from the previous games. As you can see, the moves are a little bit more arcadey, over the top. Often we, especially with the blades, we could just create massive arcs where we didn't have to worry about the camera. And often we defied the laws of gravity. But once we moved into motion capture, we learned a lot. We learned a lot about the process because we hadn't really used it for combat before. So here's an example of a move. And this is data from footage from the motion capture stage. This is the data. As you can see, it got us about 80% of the way, right? And then our animation team would go in and enhance it. Without the keyframe knowledge and experience, we wouldn't be able to do it. Now, these moves are at 60. They're actually exported with a lot more frames because then once we get into the game, the fidelity of the chain blades would read a lot better. That's why we had to export those with a little bit higher frame rate. This is some of the first bit of data. So yeah, this is exclusive, Kratos killing Kratos. And like as you can see, the axe was just a basic axe. There was nothing fancy about it. It was meant to be just this, really gritty game. The moves were supposed to be very grounded and methodical and not very magical at first, because the game direction was to be a lot grittier. But as we play tested and we moved forward, we discovered that, hey, we need to kind of inject back a little bit of the old God of War games into it. So here's another pass at an early animation where we started getting a little bit more of that old Kratos movement back. One of the things you notice is that he's actually throwing the axe as a boomerang. This is when we started introducing some of the magical nature of the moves. But they were going to be part of the combo originally. So before they were just going to be button presses and the axe would come out and fly out and hit the enemies and come back automatically. But we particularly had to focus on making it look good from a new camera perspective. So as you can see, we pulled in the chains way more than they used to be. It was meant to just read enough with the camera, but still retain the same feeling from the old games. And here's some examples of how both the axe and the blades look from the new camera perspective in-game. And as you can see, we definitely moved away from the grounded feel. And even though, Kratos is jumping up in the air, but he's not jumping as crazy as he used to in the previous games. So there's a nice blend that we were able to achieve between the grounded and the previous games. So the concept art team started working on that. As you can see, this is some early concept where they started taking inspiration from the previous games and the way that he looked. I started adding the beard, adding the Norse motifs to him. And as you can see, he has a bit more of a human proportions, a little bit closer to a more relatable human. Even his weapon, as you can see at the early stages, it wasn't a magical axe. It was just a simple weapon that he was to use. The direction of the game early on was very grounded. It was meant to be a lot more realistic. And in the early beginnings, as I will show you, some of the early animation was very grounded and more not as sort of over the top as it ended up being. So we had to dial that in to make it work with the direction of the game. Here's a shot of the 3D model as it was making progress. This is around the time of the E3 reveal in 2016. The first time that we showed Kratos to the public, the new Kratos emerging from the shadows. So as you can see already, he was starting to feel a little more human, than how we previously depicted him.
Place, park, scene dark, silvery moon is shining through the trees. Cast to me you, sound of kisses floating on the breeze. Act 1, be